entitled Leveraging LinkedIn. My name is Mike Bisa, and I'm the Assistant Director at the St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce and your host for today's webinar. This webinar series is offered to our members for free. Thank you to our Leadership Circle member sponsors, Clarkson University and St. Lawrence University. In today's webinar, we'll dive into the social media platform called LinkedIn and learn why you should all be on LinkedIn, understand what your social selling index is, and how to enhance your LinkedIn profile. Here to give us the breakdown of LinkedIn is Ken Polk. Ken is a passionate sales professional with a background in field sales, leadership, and training. After 23 years with Automatic Data Processing, or ADP, Ken recently joined Wolters Kluwer Tax and Accounting North America as the Sales Training Manager for Sales Learning and Enablement. In addition to managing the company's leadership development program, Ken also supports new hire sales training and continuing education as a learning champion for WK's Canadian division. Ken was an early adopter of LinkedIn and has taught salespeople the power of leveraging the social media tool. He's a big believer in developing your online brand and using the power of connections.
Thank you for calling St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce. May I help you?
Looking for anyone to grow their business. Ken lives in Williamsville, New York, with his wife and 3 children. He graduated St. Lawrence University in 1991 and is an active alumnus. His in-laws live in Canton, so he enjoys coming to town often, not only to visit them, but also his beloved St. Lawrence County, or St. Lawrence University. So a quick few things before we get started. As I mentioned earlier, Ken will be asking questions throughout the presentation today, and so you can unmute yourself to answer these questions. Just it's in the bottom left-hand corner again. Please stay muted throughout the presentation. If you don't, we'll have a lot of background noise, so please make sure you're muted unless you wish to answer the questions. Also, you can ask any questions throughout the presentation by typing into the chat window. So that's on the bottom too. And we'll answer those throughout the presentation if we can, or we'll save those for the end. The session is also being recorded, and we'll make this available through our member center at slcchamber.org soon after the webinar. And with that, I will turn it over to Ken.
Hi, can you hear me? Mike, can you hear me okay?
Yep, sorry, I muted myself. We can hear you good, Ken. You just need to flip-flop to the other presentation display and you'd be good to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that intro, and thank you so much for inviting me. I've done some training up at St. Lawrence University, and as mentioned, my family lives in Canton. I am Dick and Kathy Metcalf's son-in-law and Matt Metcalf's brother-in-law, and love coming up and visiting not only St. Lawrence but also my family, and thrilled to be working with you guys today. You know, LinkedIn is an incredible tool. I know last month you had a session on Instagram, and I think that one of my goals of today is to really help you understand how leveraging LinkedIn can help you work smarter, not harder as a business. As a salesperson, I know not all of you are in sales, but I have a belief that we're all in sales in one way or another, and I truly believe that we're going to be able to help you out today. I know Mike sent out a poll. There were a number of people who were newer users to LinkedIn, but I think we've got a little bit of something for everyone, and that is my goal. So let's get started. Mike had sent out a video, and hopefully you had a chance to watch that. Take yourself off mute to get us started. I really enjoy participatory sessions. I do virtual training for a living. I'm not afraid to call on people, but I won't go that far yet. Somebody get us started. Who had a chance to watch the video? What made you laugh? What made you cry? Hopefully it was a fun way to get you started thinking about social selling.
I could kick
Anyone
things
want to kick
off,
us off?
Ken.
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
yeah, I think in watching it, the part that made me laugh was when at the beginning she just tapped on someone that she didn't know and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I'm following you."
Yeah, yeah, it's a really funny take if you didn't get a chance. It's about 2.5 minutes long, where this woman walks around as if social media was in the real world, and she stands in front of a big building, and she says, "Michael Smith just became an attorney at Smith Jones Attorneys," and she checks into Grand Central Station and says, "I just checked into Grand Central," and it's an absolute funny take. So even if you didn't get a chance to watch it in advance, I really encourage you to share it with your team, share it with your kids. It's a really funny way to look at social selling. One of the scenes in there that made me laugh was she's getting her shoe shined, and she's on the left side, there's someone next to her, and then there's someone next to that guy. And she turns to the guy next to him and says, "Can you introduce me to the guy next to you? You're my 1 degree of separation." And wouldn't it be funny if that's how we talked? Because we use LinkedIn to try and connect with people, to understand our buyers, to understand our market, to understand the competition. And again, it was just a fun way. Hopefully you'll get a chance to watch it if you didn't. So let's jump into some goals. Before I share what we're going to cover today, here are my goals. Whether you're a basic, just getting started on LinkedIn, or one of you, I think, said I set up a LinkedIn account and kind of forgot about it. If you're at the very basic beginning steps of using LinkedIn as a tool, we're going to help you out today. I hope you're going to learn a number of things that will help you use LinkedIn more and just move a little bit towards getting comfortable with it and becoming more of an intermediate user. I think that's where a lot of people, I think, at least in my experience, have been on the tool, have used the tool, but they're not quite at an advanced level. And I'm not sure that we're going to get you there today, but if you are at an intermediate level, I believe there's still 1 or 2 or 3 takeaways from today that will move you forward, whether it's understanding your individual presence, your network, a little bit about groups, or how to get more involved. I'm really confident that we're going to achieve that for you. And so, as was shared in the pre-work and as was shared in Mike's opening, we're going to talk a little bit about why LinkedIn, right? Why is this the premier B2B networking tool? How's it similar and different from some of the other tools out there? We're also going to talk about something called an SSI. It's your Social Selling Index. It's the only known social scale that's out there that talks about your efficacy, your ability to use a social selling tool effectively. And then we're going to talk about enhancing your LinkedIn profile. And I promise you there are some things here that you can take away and implement immediately, whether you are a beginner or an intermediate user. So why LinkedIn? It is truly the most prominent B2B social selling network in North America. 10 years ago, think about this, 10 years ago, there were 10 million users. There are currently 660 million. So in 10 years, it has truly become the dominant, most prominent network. And there are many reasons for this. There are some really key attributes within LinkedIn. It's not just your profile. And we'll talk a little bit about the importance of your profile, your picture and your headline and your summary. But there's a really cool search feature, including an advanced search. There's incredible insight about your network and your connections. There's really, just like other social media platforms, the ability to share relevant content, but the ability to add value and lead to powerful discussions is really where I've seen the value of LinkedIn grow. There's a tremendous amount of trust that you can be built through networking, and I probably won't be able to get to it, but I actually closed a sale because I was able to network through a connection. And it's a really powerful tool. And then there's a messaging feature. Once you're connected with someone, if you're a first-degree connection, you can actually message that person, and many people will reply to their LinkedIn messages because it doesn't hit their crowded inbox. And so it's a really powerful tool that, that people are more likely to respond to. So in doing some research, we found a couple of white papers. There was one by Outreach, and there was another one by a company called Van Gresso. And they did a survey of over 900 companies, 900 sales organizations, and they talked about the power of LinkedIn, and it was from 2019. And I thought I'd just share a couple of facts so that you guys understood where I'm coming from with some of my background, and also understanding the power of LinkedIn and how it might be helpful. So some of you may know there is a paid version of LinkedIn. You can get something called LinkedIn Navigator. There are other premier versions. Everything I'm going to share with you today can be done in the free version. In fact, they determined in this study that 63% were still using the free version. They also said that 80%, and I mentioned the importance of a profile, and we'll talk about that later, but 80% either had a, quote, recognizable and professional photo or acceptable for business, which to me is a little bit scary, because what does that tell you? Tells you 20% of people on LinkedIn, which is a professional networking site, don't have a professional or acceptable for business photo. But a photo is really, really important. And we'll take a look at some good and some bad later in the presentation. 50% had 500 or fewer connections. So you don't have to be a super user. You don't have to connect with every single person you've ever met in your life. But it's a great way to build your network and understand how the power of connections can help you and your organization. And only 45% have asked someone for a referral, which means 55 had not. One of the neat parts about LinkedIn is if you're a restaurant, if you're a nonprofit, if you are an organization, let other people do the work for you. And you can actually ask through LinkedIn on your personal page, or if you manage your organization site, for a referral, and they can actually write something that can be posted and shared. So if you go to my LinkedIn, I think I've got 5 or 6. They're absolutely really nice and helpful, and it helps build trust, which we'll talk a little bit about later. One last thing from the survey, and I'm very passionate about this part. Because I'm in sales, if I was calling on Mike, I would probably go to the St. Lawrence County Chamber website. I may go to the St. Lawrence County Chamber Facebook page. I may go to their LinkedIn page. But I also would go to Mike's LinkedIn page. And the survey said that only 55% go to the individual's LinkedIn profile. And we're going to talk about this later, but if I was calling on Mike to do business with him or engage with him in some way, I would want to know where Mike went to college. I would want to know what organizations and groups Mike's involved with. I would want to know if we have any shared connections. I might want to know if he has any interests or won any awards or has any achievements. I certainly would want to know, and we'll talk about this, if he belongs to any relevant groups. And so the last takeaway that I wanted to share with you from the survey was the importance of doing your homework, doing your prep, and making sure that you're using all the technology that's available for you, not just at the organizational level, but so much powerful information can be done at the individual level. And I know for the salespeople that I train, we really talk about the importance of doing some research before picking up the phone and making sure that you can engage in a better conversation. So let me share with you the second main takeaway. So the first was why LinkedIn. Hopefully that answers that part. The second thing we're going to talk about is something called Social Selling Index. And I'm going to share that link with you guys when we're done with the presentation. I'm going to guess, based on the survey responses, that maybe one or two of you know what SSI is. Let me explain it and share it with you and understand the power of this. We could actually do an entire training just on the importance of SSI. So Social Selling Index, what it says on the screen there, measures how effective you are at establishing 4 key categories: establishing your professional brand, finding the right people, engaging with insights, and building relationships. It's a score out of 100. Each category is worth 25 points. And when you log into LinkedIn, and you can't do this from the app, you have to be either on the desktop or if you do it from your phone or a tablet, you have to log into LinkedIn without going through the app using that link that I showed previously. When you click on these blue highlights, they will actually tell you what is establish your professional brand mean and how do I get better at it. There's videos, there's information on what you can do around each one of those four. Now this Melanie, you can see she's 1% of her SSI score, both in her industry and within her network. A score of 88 is very, very, very high. I would not be surprised if some of you are fairly new to LinkedIn, that you have a score in the 20 or 30 or 40. For the salespeople I coach, we hope that they have scores in the 50s or 60s at a minimum, because they're client facing, they should be engaging with people, sharing content, and that's what engaging with insights and building relationships is all about. So what my recommendation to you, one of my first takeaways, a little bit of homework for you, is when you log in using that site that we'll send out with the presentation and you look up what your SSI score is, click on that little blue button that says Learn More, and then click on each of those four individual blue phrases, and they'll actually teach you a little bit more what SSI is and how you can get better at it. It's the only known social selling score known for any social media platform. And here's why it's important. The study that I referenced earlier mentioned that those, and this was sales specific, but think about it, someone who has a high SSI score is going to have a higher number of connections. They're going to use the advanced search feature. They're going to have referrals. They're going to share content consistently. And the big new take on LinkedIn is leveraging videos, both in your profile, on your homepage, and as a way to engage with insights. So Social Selling Index is a really powerful tool. It's a measure of your effectiveness. And what we found is that, again, tailored to salespeople, people who have a high SSI have been proven to have three times more likely to achieve their sales quota. And so it's something that we really push. Now, I mentioned the scores of 30 and 40 and 50. Only 16% of people in this study had a score of 70, which is kind of LinkedIn's benchmark. Like, that's a really good score. And even I don't have a 70 because, again, I'm not client facing. I train other internal people, but I do share content. I do connect with people, and I do want to make sure that I maintain a presence on LinkedIn. Quick note, SSI is updated every day, and every week it can change. So if you're on vacation and you come back, you can easily bring that score back up. It's something that the more you engage, the more you comment, the more you like, the more you post, the more you connect with people, you'll be able to see and learn more about each of those four pillars. So let me just take yourself off mute for just 1 second. Any questions about SSI? Again, it could be an entire training. We could dive into each of those four pillars, but take yourself off mute. Or Mike, do we have any questions in the chat about it?
I don't see any yet. I can send something out.
All right, I'll move on and we can come back to it. But it's a really neat thing that we found to be an important part of driving social media, within the context of what you do every day. So why is this important? LinkedIn actually did a study, their own talent brand playbook, and they found that social networks of employees are 10 to 11 times greater than those of a company's followers. So if my company shares an article and I reshare that, because I have a network, a trusted network, I expand, just like this picture, I expand the network of my company's followers. And so remember that you are, regardless of your role in the organization, you are really the most important piece of that company strategy. And so if you can develop a social media presence within your organization, whether it's 3 people or 12 people or 30 people, the individuals within your company really play an important role of spreading that message. And so it starts with earning influence. And let me explain what I mean by that. No one wants to jump on a B2B or B2C social media platform and just be sold, just be, flooded with information about their specials, their promotions, their products. And so as you think about doing this right, and since so many of you are at the beginning stage of using LinkedIn, I really think that it starts with developing a personal online brand. And as you think about your brand, it's what do others say about you? How can you add value to the customers you're trying to reach? How can you understand the industry so that you can amplify the message about your organization? As you learn about the competition and track key accounts, it's really about insightful interaction. And once you've done that, once you've started sharing content, and I'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute, you've really earned the influence so that people will follow you, people will reshare your content, and people will want to do business with you. And so my first, one of my suggestions is don't just jump on and start promoting me. Make sure that you're doing it in a way that you're thinking about your personal online brand. And as you understand and share information about the industry, make sure you're leading with that insightful interaction. And so it starts with sharing content. I was really surprised in this study to find out that 1/3 of people that join LinkedIn never share content. That's amazing to me. Now remember, LinkedIn many years ago really was thought of and started out as a site for job seekers. And there's certainly a lot of things that you can do within your network to help find jobs and connect with people. In fact, I was with a company for 23 years and unfortunately lost my job. My entire division shut down. I did my entire job search through LinkedIn, and it was done through personal connections with the company that I had previously worked at. There's a lot of power to that. But I want to talk about LinkedIn from a buyer's perspective. You want to share content that's going to draw people to do business with you. And so we want to make sure that you're sharing content, and again, doing it in the right way. The easiest way to get started is by you resharing information that's already out there. So if you read blogs, if you read a newsletter, if you find an article, I've never seen an online article or an online blog that didn't have a little LinkedIn symbol. And all you need to do is click on that, and it'll reshare that post. Very easy. Rather than creating content, it's very easy to just reshare content. And the only way you can do it is to get started. And one of the tips that I have for you, especially those of you who may be in sales, is there's this wonderful 5-letter word that's really important that starts with T and rhymes with rust. And this article in Outreach talked about trust. And it said within a matter of seconds, buyers will unconsciously and immediately place you in one of two buckets, trust or don't trust. And so if all you do is lead with your product, if all you do is lead with come do business with us, you will immediately fall into that not trusted bucket. And so that's why I talk about adding value, sharing content, engaging in conversations before you just use LinkedIn to sell. One of the easiest ways to get started is by joining groups. So when I first came to Wolters Kluwer, as Mike mentioned, part of my responsibility is to work with a Canadian sales team. I immediately went to the sales leaders and said, who are the right groups to join so that I can understand more? We sell to accountants and tax professionals. I want to understand what are Canadian accountants dealing with. How can I help new hires sell to accountants if I don't understand the issues that are going on with Canadian accountants? And so I joined my company's group. I joined the Canadian accountant group. I joined the Canadian taxation professionals group. and I monitor these conversations. And I want to make sure that first, I'm listening and learning. At some point, once I'm understanding a little bit about what they're sharing, I may like something, I may reply to something. Hey, that was a great article. Thanks for sharing. Hey, other clients that I deal with are seeing those same issues. Thanks for sharing. This was a great ad, right? And then as I get more comfortable, I'm going to share new content. And so my ask for you is to think about this saying, teach where your buyers learn. Where do the people that you're trying to reach spend their time? Are they in groups? Are they members of associations? It's one of the reasons you're a member of the St. Lawrence County Chamber. But we're talking about online groups through LinkedIn. And so the power of being able to connect is as you look at someone's profile, you can see what groups they're a part of. And I encourage you to join those groups, listen and learn first, like and reply second, and then as you get comfortable, start sharing new content. Here's the last thing I want to share before we jump into profile tips. And again, this could be a training all within itself. Advanced search is a super, super, super powerful tool. You can search by within subsegments, people, jobs, content, companies, schools, and groups. So I live in Buffalo, New York, and I sell, let's say I was in sales, to accountants. And guess what? I have this tremendous alumni network because I went to St. Lawrence. If I wanted to search my first and second degree connections in LinkedIn who live in Buffalo, who went to St. Lawrence, who are in the accounting industry, I could do that. I could do that. In fact, I mentioned my job search. I did my job search through LinkedIn. I said, show me everyone who used to work at this company, my company that I used to work at, who's in the sales, training, industry. And I was able to find and network with a number of people that I used to work with. And so this study said that 73% of used advanced search fewer than 11 times a month. It really is a very powerful tool. And that's probably more of an intermediate thing if you're just starting out, but just know that advanced search is available and it's a really, really powerful tool. So let me pause there again. Those were kind of three main things that we wanted to talk about in the first 20 minutes, which was understanding why we're talking about LinkedIn, talking about the social selling index and the power behind it, and then a couple of tips on understanding the importance of features like sharing content, joining groups, and advanced search. Like anything in the chat, and then I do want to ask to come off mute, and please, before we move forward, we're moving along at a nice pace. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or thoughts on what I've covered so far?
I'll wait
Don't
to
be
see.
shy.
So far, no questions in the chat. I did ask if everyone could find the mute button okay, so we should be okay to unmute ourselves. I can start off with one, kind of just a second what you said about joining groups. When I first started the chamber, I joined the chamber group on LinkedIn, and for content or ideas of what you can share, joining those groups, like if you're in a restaurant, the restaurant group, or if you do marketing, the marketing group, a 4-H camp group, they're really beneficial, and you can find that content that'll kind of help your organization and also give you what you need to add value to your LinkedIn profile.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Comments on advanced search, comments on groups or sharing content? I'm not a fan of silence, so please jump in and share your thoughts. All right, let's move forward. So let's talk a little bit about some profile tips. I shared with you that I was going to share 3.
I have one question for you, Ken.
Oh, go ahead.
It's so when sharing content, what's the most useful type of content to share?
It's It's a great question. So I'm a big fan of short articles or blogs that are relevant to whatever topic is important. So if I was in the restaurant industry, again, I'm not going to promote myself. I may find something that's interesting that my followers would want to know. It could be a general topic. So go find those articles and blogs. I'm not a fan of sharing, 20-page white papers. Again, if you're following groups, if you're following associations, there's so much information out there. So I like sharing industry-specific information, but I like being brief. When you do share an article or a blog, instead of just sharing it, you also can comment on it. So you can put your own take on it and say, saw this article and really love points 3, 4, and 5, or saw this article and great tips on how to achieve greater results in 2020. And so you can add your own comment on that. But that's where I would start is finding articles, blogs, where are the normal places that you find relevant information that you want to share. But I think shorter the better. I'm not a big fan of sharing big, long articles and things like that. So I would start with the industry, quite honestly. I think that's, people are interested. If they're following you, my guess is they're following you because they're a friend or they've done business with you. And so if you want to attract followers, you want to earn that trust, you want to become relevant within your industry, my guess is that you could start sharing relevant content about your industry. Is that fair?
Sounds
Mike,
good.
you think that answers the question?
Yeah,
Good?
no, I think it helps. And just kind of a follow-up question to that is, if it is your own content, how important is text, versus pictures versus video?
That's a great question. Video is really incredibly important within LinkedIn. Just think about other social media platforms. We're likely on Facebook or other things too, and that's why I said the brevity of it is so important. We're way more likely to click on a video than we are read a 4 or 5 paragraph thing. I think, again, if you're creating your own content versus resharing information that's out there, whatever you think is relevant, again, I would be brief. I think pictures, when you share an article, typically, if you're resharing content, typically there's a picture that's associated already with that article. I would start by resharing content that's already out there, but it is very easy for you to share your own content. And many times, if you want to link it to your website, it's very easy to just say, wanted to share this interesting article about, driving, having a successful first quarter in 2020, and then you just put the link to your website. So you want to make sure to keep it brief, and you can use external links. So that might be the easiest way to do it. Good question.
Thanks, Ken.
Good question. Keep them coming. All right, let's talk about some profile tips. This is absolutely 3 things that I believe all of you can walk away with today, and implement. So the first is something we call grab your name. You'll see here that my friend Amy Humphreys has a public URL, a public profile, linkedin.com/in, first initial, last name. By default, LinkedIn puts a public URL with linkedin.com/pub, first name, last name, a bunch of letters and a bunch of numbers. And you'll see in the top left corner on your home page, on your profile page, there's a section right there on the top left that says Edit Public Profile and URL. And you'll see a screenshot of what mine looks like. So it simply becomes linkedin.com/in, first, last. If you have a common name, you might need to be Ken Polk 2 or Ken Polk 3 or Ken Polk 4. or Ken Polk Sales or Ken Polk Buffalo. If you want to use your industry or your company name, but it's much easier to find. It's much more professional looking than having this garbage with all these letters and numbers. It's also something that you can put in your signature line within your email. Very easy to edit a link that has a link right to your public URL page. And then it's also something that if you are looking for a job, you can put on your resume or share that information. So edit your name. We call it grab your name. It's called edit your public profile. It's a really powerful way for people to be able to find you, and it just looks more professional. The second thing, and one of the things that kind of drives me a little bit nuts, is when people don't customize what's called their headline. So the headline, you'll see I'm using my Amy Evans Humphreys example, is highlighted in red here. So Amy edited her headline to say she's an executive sales leader, taking teams to the next level, difference maker, and live music fanatic. If you do not update your headline, this defaults to your title. Now, you saw my title was Sales Training Manager, Wolters Kluwer, Tax and Accounting, North America. What is that? We have titles like Account Executive. We have titles like District Sales Manager. We have titles like Implementation Executive, right? So take the time to edit your headline and tell us a very a quick summary about yourself. It's really easy to do. It's right where you edit your name. You can enter information on in the headline, and this will eliminate your title showing up underneath your name. So what are some things you should consider when building out a headline? I like to call it your so what. So if you were to click on Amy Humphreys' page, or you were to click on my page or Mike's page, I kind of consider this like my elevator pitch, right? If someone met you and say, hey, what do you do? You'll see mine says I'm a passionate sales professional with 25 years of experience in sales, sales leadership, and sales training. It's your 2 to 3 sentences that's specific, that has some important keywords, and it speaks directly to your audience. And so you can be very, very creative, and we're going to look at some examples. And I am going to ask you to come off mute because I am going to ask you for your feedback on a couple of these things. But your headline really is important. It engages with your audience. It lets your buyers or your network know a little bit more about who you are. And again, it eliminates the need for some of these silly titles to be eliminated, because the title is not who you are. It's just a title of maybe what you do. So I'm going to ask you to come off mute, or if you really want to put it in the chat, tell me what about these headlines. Now, why I picked 2 examples of people who don't have photos, I'm not sure. Why they both happen to be in London, I am not sure, but these are the examples I use. What do you think? Anthony has no picture, and he's got a headline of marketer. Thomas is a social media marketing manager with experience growing Shopify stores to 1 million visitors. See the difference there? You have up to 120 characters, by the way. A little bit of similarity there with Twitter. I think it's 140. But it adds a little bit more, right? What about these ones? My favorite headline in the history of headlines: Gordon Ray is quite possibly the only person on LinkedIn who isn't a results-oriented team player with excellent interpersonal skills. If you are not laughing right now, I did not do my job. Hopefully you did not spit out your soup as you enjoyed this webinar during your lunch. But that's really creative, right? Wouldn't I want to know more about Gordon? Wouldn't I want to potentially connect with him or see what he does, what industries he's in, and, you know, find out a little bit more about the groups? I just find that absolutely creative and hysterical. What about this one? Antonio is living the dream as a banker in Portugal. Maybe too creative in my mind. I don't know what Antonio does. Is he a teller? Is he a mortgage consultant? It's kind of cute living the dream, but am I going to want to connect with him because of that? Does it really tell me a little bit of insight about who he is or what he does? And if your headline is short and sweet and to the point, the goal of the headline, in my opinion, is to have someone say, tell me more. Gordon, I want to learn more about him. Antonio, I'm not quite sure. Joan makes me say, tell me more. Joan, the #1 publicity expert on Google, president of the Publicity Hound, call and ask how I can help with your PR and social media. It's a lot better than just a title. I hope you agree. So that's a little bit about headlines. Headlines are really important because they are viewed right under the name. The first thing people look at is the picture. The second thing people look at is the name. The third thing people look at is the headline. If Antonio said banker, thanks, he's in the banking industry. Probably not going to be, too helpful. So rather live in the dream than banker, but take the time to customize your headline. The last tip, I mentioned the importance of a headline is to say, tell me more. The next step is devising and creating your own summary. So your summary, and we're going to stay with Amy's example here. We knew that Amy loved music. We know that Amy was a strong sales leader. But now we know a little bit more because in Amy's summary, we know she's a results-driven leader with 20 years of creating, implementing, and leading sales strategies. She's got experience in a bunch of different markets. She's particularly strong in launching new markets, and she's strong with developing and engaging high-performing teams, right? So your summary is also found on your homepage. It's actually called the About section. So you want to click on About, and it will then allow you to enter information into your summary. And here is where somebody asked about video. Here is where you could actually put videos in. And I'm going to show you a couple of profiles in a minute. Putting a video on your homepage under your summary is a really, really powerful tool and a great way to engage with followers and with your network. And so that's where that could be done. So thank you for the question earlier about videos. This is where you can upload photos or sites or videos and add that to your summary. But your summary is more than just your headline. If your headline is your elevator pitch where you just met someone and the goal is to say, tell me more, your summary is really that follow-up. But it should be skimmed in 30 seconds or less. It definitely should have some keywords and strengths and talents, information about your background. Please, 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 please proofread it. There should be no spelling or grammatical errors. Really important when you're trying to establish trust and build your online presence. Make sure that you've viewed your summary. I've actually had some people write their summary in Word so that it can be, edited and then copy and paste it into LinkedIn. I do not believe LinkedIn will pick up typos or grammatical mistakes. And then I want you to think about answering some questions that if I looked at someone's headline and then I read their summary, I want to know what makes that person unique. Where has their career been and where are they headed? How do other people describe them? And what values do I offer? So if I was doing business with Amy, again, I've looked at her headline, I've looked at her summary, and it tells me a lot about her. So I've got about 6 different profiles, and I want you to look at their picture, I want you to look at their headline, and I want you to look at their summary. And it sounds like we have a little bit of a quiet group today, but I am going to ask you to come off mute. And someone tell me, what do they like? What do they not like about Raphael Parker? What are your thoughts? We've got a picture, we've got a background, we've got a headline, head of outreach at segment.com. We've got a little summary. ex-corporate lawyer, ex-nonprofit founder, ex-round-the-world cyclist, ex-Nigerian federal government employee, currently working with incredible bright people who are fanatically devoted to solve problems faced by other incredibly bright people so that folks can do more interesting things much faster. What are your thoughts about that?
I have no idea what he does.
No idea what segment.com is, right? And I certainly don't know what head of outreach is. And so I do like his summary. It's funny. It's short. I don't mind the summary. I don't know what he does, but I really do not like the headline. I think he's got a nice professional picture. I'm not sure about the background there, a segment.io. I'm not really sure. Little confused. What about Micah Day? What jumps out at you? We've got a picture, we've got a background. And by the way, you can change your profile picture, and that thing behind her is called your background. You can change both of those. We've got her headline and we've got her summary. What are your thoughts? This one's easy. What's the first thing that jumps out at you?
Seems like I'm reading a book when I look at her summary.
Yeah, it's too long. It's too long. Now, I've read this probably 40 times. She tells you an awful lot about herself. I mean, if I was calling on her to do business with her, I know that she's proud to work at a female-funded tech company. I know she's a Green Bay Packer fan. I know she's got a Nike collection. She's got a black belt in karate. She's got a saying, never leave anything to chance. She's passionate and focused and has intensity and steadfastness and curiosity and impatience. Right? So it's lots of good information, but I would say it's a little too long. You could probably use bullet points a little bit better. And, she's got a very professional picture and a decent summary, right? Head of sales. It's not uncommon for sales managers to post right in their headline, contact me, I'm always hiring, right? So that's kind of an interesting one. What about Fernando? A city dweller who loves to travel, partake in outdoor activities, find new adventures along the way. I've experienced working in industries ranging from tech startups to marketing research and on and on and on. What do you think about Fernando's? Only 2 comments that I could think of here. What jumps out at you?
We had one in the chat that said the pic is too casual.
Very casual. The guy's wearing a T-shirt, right? I don't know a lot about Wistia or what Wistia does, but do I professionally want him? There's a lot of companies that dress down. That's fine. That's fine. But if I was a recruiter and I was looking at Fernando, again, first impression is, guy's wearing a T-shirt, right? So absolutely, maybe a little informal. That's okay for Facebook or other sites, but if this is a professional networking site, probably could do that. The other comment I was had, solutions associate at Wistia. What is that? I would say develop your headline a little bit. So I think he's got a decent summary, but I think he could develop his headline a little bit. He defaulted to his title.
Ken, do you think the summary is a little too personal? Like, how do you kind of balance your personal, activities and then your professional stuff?
I think it depends on your audience. I think it depends on, who your network is and who you're trying to do business with, who you're connecting with, what groups you're associated with. I do think there's a balance, right? This is not Facebook. It's not meant to be, pictures of your family and dog but I don't think it's bad to say I'm a huge fan of this team, or, I follow, all things related to, European soccer. I mean, those are things that are fun to get to know you a little bit more as a person. But again, remember the foundational principles of LinkedIn as a professional networking business site. And so I'm going to give you a template on ways that you can write some of the things about you and your background. I would stick more on the professional side, but I actually like this one. I've experienced working in industries from tech startup to marketing research. I enjoy meeting new people, developing relationships, solving problems, and contributing to the overall growth of a business. Not bad. Not bad. This one strikes me. So the funniest man in software, proven sales leader. What a great headline. His summary's even better. He appeared on Comedy Central and the Boston Comedy Festival before realizing my children liked seeing their father and not starving. He emceed every time I laugh. He emceed HubSpot's inbound events, attracting 18,000 sales professionals, where I got to meet David Ortiz and make juice with Martha Stewart, among other things. I love his picture. I love everything about him. There's one other thing that should jump out at you. What do you see on this profile that we haven't seen on any of the other ones?
We're getting a lot of responses in the chat. One for this is the excellent use of videos for engagement.
You got it. You got it. Right? So he built some videos. If he's the funniest man in software, I don't know if he does speaking engagements, but what a better place than to let me see how funny he is by putting that right in his summary, right?
Ken, with the picture in the background, you know, how important is that photo, and do you have any suggestions for the type of photo to put there?
Yeah, so, you know, look, I know we've got, I don't know if they're on, but I know we've got the art museum on. I know we've got the restaurant on. I mean, I think certainly a picture of your building is certainly appropriate. I think anything professional. I think the profile picture is probably more important than the background. It will default, I believe, to this blue, what you see in the background. That would probably be my only tip for Dan. But I think the chamber, you could have your logo, you could have, something that this is like your web page. This is like your personal web page. So do something that's going to attract and engage your audience. And it's not just your profile picture. That background is important. And so I would say, focus first on the picture, the headline, and the summary. But yes, you should think about, what do I want my profile picture to look like? And if you go to my page, by the way, I have a picture as a profile. And then last year I did a sales training with about 100 people in the room. And there's a picture of me in the middle of the room training people. And so that's my background page, because I want people to see me as a sales trainer. So I think you can, again, not like Facebook. You're not going to update this every day or every week, but certainly you could go in and update that picture periodically. Let's look at our last one. Adam has a nice 3-paragraph summary. I won't read it to you, but he talks a little bit about himself personally. He talks a little bit about himself professionally. He's got a nice summary, helping teachers develop listening skills at ListenWise. I'm assuming that if you're a teacher, you know what ListenWise is. What's the one thing that maybe stands out about this one that could be improved? Anyone on the chat? Anyone want to come off mute? What stands out about this profile? His picture. I don't need a full body shot. It looks like he's at a wedding or at a sales conference, or, right? Just have a nice professional headshot. I certainly don't need people in the background, and I don't need a full body shot. So I mentioned I was going to give you a template. You don't have to use this word for word, but you could write a summary that says something like, I'm a seasoned 5-year veteran of working in my industry. I'm passionate about X, working with other organizations who Y. I've spent the last X years helping grow this company, or helping achieve results, or helping, be the best nonprofit in the area focused on this or this or this. Maybe you have a skill or a recognition or an award that you want to promote. If you're seeking opportunities to grow your business or do business with other people, it's fair to put that in there. And you can actually put your contact information right in there as well. So again, we'll share this with you. There's lots of information about, and you can just Google how to write a great summary on LinkedIn, how to write a great headline on LinkedIn. There are all kinds of information out there. So guys, as we close, there were 3 things I shared in the first half of the presentation. One was, understand what your SSI is. Go out, use that website, click on the blue link, and really learn about all those 4 pillars. The second was start sharing content, and the easiest way to do that is by joining groups. Teach where your buyers learn. Figure out who your market is, who are your followers, who is your network that you're trying to work with, and where are they spending their online time. Start listening and learning, then start liking and replying, and then start sharing content. But join groups and make sure that you share some content. Even if you did once a week, right? This is not Twitter or Facebook. You don't have to post multiple times a day. But start posting some content. And then the third, and this again might be a little more advanced, but start leveraging advanced search. You know, it's a really, really, really powerful tool where you can drill down and find information. So increase your SSI, understand your SSI, share content by joining groups, and leverage advanced search. And then we talked about 3 things about your profile. Grab your name. That's edit your public URL. It's right on your profile page. Make sure to just edit it so you put your first and last name. Get rid of all those numbers and letters. You can use that in your signature line, in email. You can use that on your resume. You can use it lots of different places, but much more professional looking when you edit your URL. We call it grab your name. The second was update your headline. Don't let it default to your title. Nobody knows what a solution architect is. Nobody knows what a training manager is, right? So update your headline, make people engage with you by wanting to understand more about who you are and what you do. Keep it brief, be creative. And then the third is update that summary section. Give us a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about your accomplishments, your goals, things that you can do, why I should engage with you, a little bit more about your past, a little bit about your personal, but make sure that you update your summary. So it has been awesome. We're right on time, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. This is